Welcome to Mindset U Podcast, your source of mindset education. We aim to provide you with free, valuable education for you to thrive. Enjoy. Today, in episode 3 of the Change series, we talk about one of the most pivotal aspects of change, which is hope. And I share with you one of my top secrets on how to create change in people's lives.
So how does the person, right, for the person that can't physiologically feel what good feels like and is afraid to feel bad within the body, I'm talking, how do you get them to envision the good?
So, to me, that goes into the main principle that we talk about in our mindset education programs, which is hope, right? That person, what you're saying is that they're lacking hope, which is perspective for a more positive future that aligns with how they believe they should be or would like to be. So it's, to me, that is a drill, a skill that you can develop to start creating that hope. Because what it's like, if I try to draw something and I don't have the skill to draw, right? Does it mean that I just walk away from drawing? I need to have the perspective that I am a learner. I can accomplish this task, right? So learning that about yourself, that you have capacity to grow, to develop, right? Which is growth mindset, is one thing. Then applying that into like a skill. Okay, so I need to envision this possible future. And then that becomes a practice where you are envisioning a possible future. And at first it's shitty. It's like you don't have the details. You're like, I don't know, it's too much to try to think of, right? Okay, that's step one. That's like a baby learning to walk, right? They try to stand up, they're gonna fall, right? And then they develop the skill a little bit further. Now they're able to stand up and hold on to something. So you learn to envision a little bit more detail. And it's a practice in which you start to cultivate that ability to seek out and understand and create that pleasure state, even if you have no point of reference. It's impossible not to have a point of reference because there's how many billions of people in the world that you can look at as inspiration and reference, you know what I'm saying? So, but for yourself, internally, like you're saying, physiology, you don't have that point of reference. You haven't had that since your 20s or whatever, and you don't even know what that felt like in the moment because you weren't self-aware at that time, taking note of how you felt. You just know it was good, right? So you can still start to create it, because what we have as humans is imagination, that possibility of creating something that doesn't exist yet, right? And using that as reference.
I want to point out something. Because like while you were talking, I was thinking like, well, it was like Rances does have a very creative, artistic brain. So I think we did this when we started talking about meditation, how you can visualize stuff. And I talk about myself, like I'm not able to visualize something coming alive, like creating it in my head. Mm-hmm. So for those people, I think this is where we differ in our styles of coaching.
Yeah.
Right? Where like you're able to help someone create that vision in their mind, right? With the sense of hope. Because then to me, my question is, well, what does hope feel like? Right? What is it physiologically feel like? Because the hope, what's great about hope is that it feels inspiring, it feels exciting, maybe like you want to go home and you want to do something. It just, there's this energy inside of you that I don't even think I can describe. It says like, yes, this is possible, right? But if you don't have that, like I feel like I've had that since I was young because my dad trained me in basketball. So it's like, you never give up. You always keep fighting. There's always, it's not over till the fat lady sings. That's what he would say to me. It's not over, right? So there was always this thing like you fight to the end because you never know. You don't know. Mm-hmm. There's some people that they don't know what that feels like, that energy feels like. And I think this is where it differs in our coaching. Is like you're able to create that out of thin air for someone. So my question is like, what's your process in doing that?
I think a key aspect of that is, well, the other thing that we teach, which is the personas, right?
Mm.
Because as you were describing that as like getting over to the fat lady sings, that to me that was 100% warrior,
Mm.
right? The idea of going and we don't stop, we keep going, right? That's the warrior. And you know, we talk about these concepts of personas, like we have these different identities inside of us that live within us that express different aspects, which are personas, right? We got victim, we got warrior as two, we got thinker as another one. But victim and warrior here become kind of aspects of the person that's only able to view the negatives and so on and so forth. They're unable to think creative and push and so on and so forth. It's like they're lacking that development of their warrior persona, that driver, that push. So it's recognizing that, and then again, it's like number one, it all starts from growth mindset, recognizing that you can learn, like adopting that perspective, adopting that mindset is number one. Because okay, I've been a victim all my life, that's who I am. That's the first step. Like, okay, you're not that just because you've been it all your life and you practice it. You're very strong at it, you have a lot of skills at it because you spend a lot of time within it. That shows, displays growth mindset. You've worked and developed the skill of being victim in most of your undertakings. On the same note, you can develop warrior by spending time and dedicating yourself to developing that warrior, to allowing that warrior to grow, to recognizing what obstacles you have against that warrior, what perspectives you have that you may feel are negative or so on and so forth that are restricting that persona of yourself. So that warrior mindset needs to be developed. We can understand what is your restriction behind it and then build an avenue, a plan to start to develop that warrior. Now you have that warrior, we developed it. Now you can start going into battle, looking at things from that perspective, going aggressively into it. On the other end, when you have someone that lacks that victim, is the same thing. It's like someone that's it's like, I don't understand why usually it becomes like a social aspect. I don't understand. Like, I'm a go-getter. Everyone, no one can understand this, and they always get all sensitive, right? That person lacks that victim aspect, right? So again, you have all these ideas about warrior. You need have all these ideas about victim. We need to develop that victim a little bit more to gain understanding of that and help you socialize. It's not about right or wrong which one. It's about developing balance. When we create that balance within ourselves, we're three-dimensional. We have all aspects that we can tap into, and then we go back into the concept of how to create change. It's pain, pleasure. It's like being able to read all of those. If you don't have the ability to read all of those, you're going to be lacking. Your picture is halfway full. So we have to develop your ability to see first.
But that's the construct within the mind. Right. So there's another component to that, which is like what I like, and this is where I think we differ in the coaching styles, is like your constructs are heavily built within the mind. And yes, like we kind of meet in the middle, right? So like to me, the warrior needs evidence in order to be a warrior. Right. So if you're a warrior, you need all the evidence for that. There needs to be physical evidence that occurs.
What do you mean by evidence?
Evidence that cookies.
Okay.
Right? Like the cookies, right? The David Goggins cookies. You need the stories to back the warrior up. So you do a good job of this, of like being able to take someone's story where they have maybe a victim perspective and then shifting and presenting another perspective that says, hey, isn't this possible? This story is also from the warrior, right? Like we talked about the one where on the mountain when I was with my ex-girlfriend, and she wanted to continue walking up the mountain. And I was like, and there was like 2,000 foot drop on one side, about 13 inches of space to walk. And I was like, nah, then we had to go rock climbing to get to the next spot. And I was like, nah, we're not doing this. This is crazy. Then she said, oh, why are you afraid? Right? And then we ended up breaking up, and all the components of not being man enough, not being a man. And then I told you this story, And I had this perspective of like, this is me not being a man. But then you shifted it to, well, isn't this possible that a man would protect their family with that decision? Would not let the person that they care about go on this path because may create danger, may kill somebody may die, it could create suffering. So that construct happens in the mind where you're able to shift someone's story or perspective to do that, right? And unless someone is open-minded enough, which then I believe this is where the type of coaching and the degree of coaching skills that one person has, I don't think every coach is the same, right? And this is why I believe, like, do your research. Just like you look for a therapist, if you're going to look for a therapist, you do your research into the therapist and you look at the reviews. The same thing has to happen with coaches, because there are good coaches and there are great therapists, and their ability to change your perspectives into things have the ability to change your life. And that's something that you're able to do within the mind, right? You're able to do that with the body too. But I think like the skill that you have that I was able to observe is like how to do it within the mind.
I mean, that's also, it's, you hit it on the head, because like for me, the root source is perspective, right, of everything. And but on the same note, like I teach my clients how to do that, right? One of the my favorite tactics to use is to have them write down a story, right? Write down a story from the perspective that they hold that story in, and then on an opposing paper, hit all the points and start literally crafting like sentences that it's all 100% true. You're not lying to yourself, not creating a new reality. You're looking at exactly what you wrote. This happened, so therefore, and then you're shifting a perspective. You're just attempting from that one sentence to look at it from a different point of view. So like how, it could be the question of how is this a good thing that happened right here? And you have to answer that question. Now you end up writing a whole nother story of the same event, and you just created two perspectives. So it becomes a practice that I have someone do over and over and over, and then they start to develop that skill. Now they can start doing it in their mind and observe this angle and that angle, and then so on and so forth, and they build up that skill, because all of it comes down into the key component of growth mindset. You have the ability to learn, and therefore you're going to be able to develop this skill.
So, question, does your approach change? Have you noticed changes or observation in your approaches when it comes to differentiating between men and women?
What does your health, love life, spirituality, career, finances all have in common? Your mindset. Mindset is the source of creating change. To learn how to install these and other life-transforming concepts, browse through our free collection of courses at betheproject.com.